those of you joining us, what's up? Welcome to HR Therapy. You are here. We are so happy to have you. In the chat, if you want to drop on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate your onboarding? Quick note on the chat. I think it defaults to hosts and panelists. You'll want to drop down with the caret to everyone. Otherwise, you'll just be talking to me. Oh my God, someone said 0. Don't
Oh,
scare me.
no.
You scared me already. That came in hot at the 0. I'm loving the use of words. I'm really proud of you all. This is wow. Welcome. Hi, David. Okay. Yay. Okay, just a note, if you are dropping your number, the little caret next to you that says hosts and panelists, you'll want to drop down and default it to everyone. I say this every HR event. I'm like, I need to go change the setting so that it defaults to chatting everyone, not chatting just the hosts and panelists. Hey, someone said 5. 1, we got you. This is gonna be so fun. Okay. Yes, I'm loving this. Oh, y'all are really, I feel like a scaled question was the right move, y'all. I'm seeing a decent mix. I'm going to say the average, what do we think? Like 3, 2.75? Everyone knows I don't know how to do math. So, like,
The met and the 0 might bring it down a little bit. So
let's go
That's
2.5.
true.
I feel like we're getting a lot of ones. Now we're using decimals. Okay, cool. If you're joining us, welcome to HR Therapy. Real quick, if you want to continue dropping your number in here, just don't forget that the caret next to your chat, you'll want to drop it to everyone, not just hosts and panelists, although you can privately speak to me if you really want, but you'll miss out on conversations with everyone else. So without further ado, welcome to HR Therapy. If you've never been here before, you are really in for a treat. We have called this session Welcome to the Shit Show. If onboarding could really talk, what would it say? And we're going to get into that today. What does onboarding look like? What experiences have we had? And how do you build a really killer onboarding experience at your org? So here's what we're getting into. My typical rundown. You're going to meet the cast, my brilliant crew of characters, Madison and George. You'll learn more about them in a second. We're going to do a segment called Dear Hibba and Friends. That is basically advice. It's inspired by an advice column I read growing up. All of you have now heard this story a million times. It was called Dear Anne, and I should not have been reading an advice column at 10 years old, but I've now turned it into a whole segment in our virtual event. Then we will take a live Q&A. There's a button you can start putting questions in literally just the second if you want in Zoom. You can also upvote the questions that you want to be desperately answered. So use your voting privileges proudly. And then we'll wrap with a what's next. Okay. Before we get to all of that, I always put this disclaimer in. This is being recorded. None of your personal information will be shared. The chat is probably the most fun you'll ever have, but it's also very distracting if you want to just focus on what we are saying. So if you don't want to be distracted, minimize that chat and then you'll be fine. And then finally, in the last 20 minutes, I like to reserve that time really for us to get to the live Q&A. So if you have like burning questions, please do. And then before we get into it, just a big thanks to Mitra Tech for helping me put together this event, introducing me to George and Madison, and we're going to share so much juicy, good info about onboarding. So without further ado, Madison, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, maybe to some folks. My name is Madison Fletcher, and I'm a growth leader at Mitra Tech. My day-to-day really allows me to connect with HR leaders near and far across industries, and really I help kind of build people-first systems that support how humans work and how we all grow and how we thrive and how we can do that not just efficiently but intentionally. So I get to see really kind of where onboarding builds real connections and where we sometimes can quietly fall flat.
I love it. You talk to like everyone. So you hear from so many different people about what experiences people are having at work. I also love that our headshots are us just staring off into the distance. We're staring at something, probably a better onboarding plan.
It's that. Yep.
George, welcome.
thank you. Excited to be here. Hi, everybody. I'm George Boone. I'm out of Austin, Texas. Been at Tech for 3 years. I have a very long, confusing title, but organizational effectiveness and talent management. Lead the L&D function, new hire orientation. We grow by acquisition, so we do a lot of acquisition orientation, bringing the people onto the company. as well as enabling performance, the compensation cycle. Lots of stuff is under my plate at Meet Your Tech, but excited to be here with y'all today.
People are loving your title. Very long, but very effective. Thank you for being here, George. I'm so pumped to talk about like you get to do some really interesting work too. And you, like me, are dealing with all the insanity that comes with being at an organization every day. So I feel like we have some good stories to share, Madison, as well. Me, if you have not met me and this is your first HR therapy, hi, I'm Hiba Yusuf. I am the host of HR Therapy. I also write a newsletter called I Hate It Here, and I have a podcast by a similar name. When I am not creating content about HR and how to make workplaces better, I am a CPO at Workweek, which is a small creator-led media startup, about 55 people, and I oversee everything from people from hiring to onboarding to all the things that come in the middle of that, like compensation, performance, all that jazz, and offboarding. So I get to do this work. I'm incredibly passionate about HR and how we welcome people to organizations, I think says so much about an organization. But I won't spoil any of our questions, so let's get into it. Dear Hiba, George, and Madison, our advice time. All right, here's my first question to the group. I obviously want the tea. What's one onboarding experience you'll never forget, but for all the wrong reasons? This is
Who's
awesome.
gonna kick us off?
Not I. Madison, you're it.
I'll jump in. Yeah, sure. So, mine isn't an actual, it's not a personal story, but I did ask a close friend if I could share it. So, a little bit of context. My friend, she's a powerhouse of a woman. She's a partner at a firm. Um, but rewind to law school, she landed a job with a philanthropy organization and she was super excited about it. Amazing mission, like super purpose driven, and everything really aligned with her values. But day one, she shows up into the office and, of course, like ready to meet the day and take on everything and take on the world. And she walks in, there's no computer, there's no Slack or like a Teams message, nothing from like, hey, glad you're here and let's tackle day one. Um, she ended up getting a simple email and it said that, believe it or not, her manager was out of the office and for her to check in with IT. So truly, no warmth, no intentionality, no welcome. I can say that, 3 weeks later, she removed herself from that situation because ultimately she quit. And it wasn't because she wasn't qualified for the position, but it was because she truly never felt seen. And that happened, starting day one. And I know she's not alone in that. I know we can see that that happens on a day-to-day basis for many organizations. We face that kind of initial first impression.
The chat right now is actually wild. People are sharing their stories. Someone shared one similar at Madison. Like it's insane to me that we know how important that day one experience is,
Oh my
and
God.
these things still happen so regularly. Like it's wild to me. George, you have to share yours and then I will share mine.
Yeah, so I before Tech, this isn't, I'm not talking about Tech, everybody who works with me in the chat. Um, I worked for a large company, 30,000 people, global presence, that made semiconductor chips. And I started in April of 2020. And if you go back to that timeline, you remember what was going on in the world with COVID and everything. And this company, they didn't have like a Teams presence. They didn't allow Zoom to be installed on computers, and they didn't even ship laptops out. They were still like an in-person company first and foremost. So I had to. I had a 2 month old baby at home, so like we were very sensitive to everything going on, like sanitizing all the time. But I had to go into the local office in Austin, Texas. I met my boss there. She was there. Nobody asked me if I was pregnant, and nobody asked me if I was married or anything like that. So that's good. Following the chat, but she handed me a printed out PowerPoint presentation of like an overview of the organization. I was like, "Oh, so what's the new hire orientation experience like?" Thinking they had a great one because it's 30,000 people in a global presence. They didn't have one, so it was a lot of figuring things out. It was a lot of like calling people on the phone, not even like a video chat. So it was very weird. Like because working with Germany, 7 hours ahead, a lot of phone calls, very, very weird experience, surreal, just going back to 2020. And reliving that.
2020 was such a
Yeah.
wild time. Like overnight, we were like, "Oh, gotta change how we've." I think overnight, a lot of teams realized that they had built very much for the in-person experience, and when you all went home, trying to translate that didn't come as naturally as we all thought. We all were like, "Oh yeah, we'll figure this out so easily." Like, no. Um, my onboarding experiences, I have now started at two places where the first day when I'm introducing myself, somebody says in the chat, "HR's here. We can't have any more fun."
Mm.
Two places, the exact same line. The second place was a coworker I had worked with previously, and I definitely slacked him afterwards and was like, "Don't do that again." Like, that's not what the case is here. Like, and I've had to say, just because HR is here does not mean we will not have any more fun. It just means like we will not be treating our employees terribly and harassing them. Like, my goal is to make sure all of you have a really good and equitable experience. That is what I'm here to do, not kill the fun. And, but if your fun involves being nasty and weird to your employees, like, yeah, I'm going to kill your fun. Like, maybe we should all re examine our definition of that. But I just remember that that made me feel so unwelcome, like, candidly. Like, and I know there are other things that happen in onboarding that also, but I remember being like, holy cow, am I not even wanted here? And it like really, I really struggled with that. So it's happened to me twice. I hear some people saying this also happened to them. Like, it's not fun being HR, and it's definitely not fun being HR when you start a new job and then everyone's like, "Ooh, we kind of don't want you here." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Actually, you should want me here." Um, I am loving the commentary in the chat. Okay, one onboarding experience never forget. We started with the tea. That was kind of piping hot. Why do you think so many companies say they care about onboarding, but like actually end up delivering a broken experience?
It, I mean, like we kind of all said it. We've all had bad onboarding experiences. Like everybody in the workplace has had a bad onboarding experience. So you understand the importance of, oh, I didn't stick around there as long as I would have had it been different. Because there's plenty of stats. Like if you have a good onboarding experience, you're more likely to stick around for at least 3 years. Like 50% of people stick around for a bit longer. But it takes a lot of energy and effort. Like I mentioned, we had a newborn during COVID. It's sort of like being thrown into the newborn experience for the first time as a parent, and you're like, I have no idea what's going on. Why is this kid crying? Why is this kid not meeting my expectations that I had prior? Like expectations are not going to be met, but if you can have a good leader who comes in and is like, hey, we haven't been meeting expectations, that obviously there's these fires that we had to put out. Here's the new expectations. If you can do that, you can get over that and get out of the broken cycle. But a lot of people don't want to put in the energy or the effort to do that.
Yeah, I've seen that happen so often where they're just like, well, people will figure it out. And it's like, no, actually, we won't figure it
That
out.
doesn't
That's not
happen.
what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
Madison, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I see a lot of like breakdown in communication, lack of trust or collaboration in the chat too. And that's my perspective as well. I mean, I think that, this is kind of like an age-old question of, well, how do we do it right? And what ultimately happens and what's the connection. But I think like trust and reciprocity really kind of like step into the conversation here and how to really commit to a people and to a person and to an organization. And we can say that we care, but are we actually committing to being prepared, to like showing up and connecting the dots? I mean, in my experience, I think that a lot of a lot of companies and a lot of people leaders that I connect with really intend to do right by their people and say that they really want to create a culture of belonging. But then, it's a balancing act of like, well, how do we create that culture, but also strike a balance of like actual process? Because we all know there's a lot of priorities, a lot of compliances when onboarding an employee as well. But if we're not humanizing that experience and really leaning into empowering people and laying the foundation and really, making sure that day one is just as important as day two, three, or day 45. I think it's really about the connection that we're making with the people, and sharing stand-ups, introducing them to people, connecting those dots for them so they feel empowered, starting day one and they know who's in their corner.
Yeah, you brought up so many good points about like trust too. So someone I've had on the podcast who I love deeply, Minda Harts, actually released a book yesterday about like the 7 types of organizational trust. And I think it's like a really interesting read because I do feel like employees are at an all-time low trust of
Right.
employers. And so when I talk about like the employee HR relationship, I say a lot of times we're kind of like starting from the negative. And then imagine like we're starting from the negative and like they come on board to the company, which should be like the most exciting time. You're like starting a new job, like it should be super exciting. And then it just fall flat because like employees or companies aren't thinking about how people are experiencing onboarding. And we're in this era of like intense personalization where like I open Spotify, it tells me exactly what to listen to. I open Netflix, it tells me what my next watch is going to be. But then we look at the workplace and we get to the workplace and it's like, here's your onboarding. And everyone has the exact same onboarding most of the time because it's just easier.
Yep. Yep. It's
So,
like a groundhog day, especially if we're already kind of, or sometimes we can be in, a strained marketplace and hiring is difficult and maybe
yeah.
doing a number of interviews. And so we really want to make a difference on day one. So there is belonging and there is trust.
Yeah, there's so much good stuff. People are asking about the book. It's called Talk to Me Nice. Someone put it in there, but it's an amazing book about trust. And I think like onboarding is like the most trust building exercise. Like, not that we're going to do trust falls, but the whole thing should feel like a trust fall. Like, an employee should know, I know what I'm getting out of this relationship. And they often leave wondering, like, what am I even doing here? I think I
Mhm.
onboarded at a company and like day 3, I was like, I'm definitely not going to last here longer than a year. And I made it to my year mark. And then I was like, I'm out. So it just like was not a good fit. So I think so many impressions are born then and the trust is low. So you have to figure out how to build it. With that, like I mean, we spilled the tea already in the beginning, but I have to know like subtle red flags that you all think new hires notice in week 1 that potentially companies just like overlook. We've touched on a few, but what else do we got?
I think for, for me and for what I hear, new hires are sponges, right? And so if they're picking up on subtle cues by the folks that are hiring them or new managers or like ELT of an organization and see that, okay, ELT is saying that we're a first organization, but like skip introductions or skip orientations or like onboarding processes. I think that that is a true red flag of culture in an organization because new hires are watching everything. I think it's how we're as people leaders, how we're showing up for our employees and setting one-on-ones and introducing them to their peers and to, team leaders. I think all of that registers with an employee on day one. And I'm not saying we have to have grand gestures, but it's about really being prepared and being present and showing that, as an organization, we're cultivating a people first kind of priority and showing that people really matter.
Yeah, when you get there and like your experience from hiring to starting is so different. That's like a giant red flag to me where like you feel like you got like a really great experience in the interview process, then suddenly you start there and it's the 180. I started somewhere where they were like, "Oh good, now we can be honest with you about all the things we wanted to tell you in your interview." And I was like,
Hmm.
why would you not just tell me in the interview? I'm like, why would you do this to me? So like that, I was like, red flag. Y'all felt like you had to lie to me in the interview process to get me to take this job, to then start and then be like, now we can tell you everything. Um, George, what do you think? What are some good red flags?
Yeah, I
Bad
mean,
red flags.
you hit it on the head right there. Like if during the interview process, if they're not like, "Hey, here's the problems we need your help with," that is
Mhm.
a huge red flag. If they're acting like everything is kick ass all the time. My boss was very transparent with me. We need you to come in and help out with leadership and management training. Like it's a huge gap right now. Another thing is if you ask that, this is my one of my favorite interview questions is what keeps you at the company right now? Like, and if they
Mhm.
don't have a good answer, run away immediately if they can't
That's a
talk
good
about
one.
what's good about their culture. And Jennifer asked a question in the chat, like, are we differentiating between orientation and onboarding? Orientation is a part of onboarding, and orientation is not just HR sitting down with you and like, here's how you pick your benefits, here's how you put in your direct deposit. it's understanding what's important about the company, meeting those leaders. If they have no sort of new hire orientation program, that's a big red flag too. Like if you're not meeting people outside of your team, within the first month, like in talking to those leaders, hearing from those leaders, that's a huge problem.
Yeah, I think if you've started and there's like nothing on the schedule other than talk to HR to pick your benefits and enter your payment and do your I-9, giant red flag. It means they
Mhm.
haven't thought past compliance. And I mean,
This
like, sorry, go ahead.
The setting expectations to piece of that as well is, George, you hit the nail on the head. Really recognizing how am I going to step into this organization and make a difference, and what are my expectations and my role, and what influence can I have? If that's not set from day one, then that, yeah, too, is alarm bells should be ringing.
We've been working with some of our hiring managers. Like we do 30, 60, 90-day surveys. And then we also try to work with our managers who have people starting, where we actually write out the expectations like by day 30, you will be. By day 60, you will be. By day 90, you will be. And we've tried to like package that as part of the onboarding so that people, even if the manager can't articulate it, at least I've worked with them and written it down for them so they could just like read the thing that we've written down for them. Because I think that expectation setting is, I feel like it's missed so often. And okay, quote me on this. I think a lot of performance problems actually start in onboarding.
Mm,
Like I think about that all the time. I'm like, if we had just onboarded this person correctly from day one, would
yeah.
we on month 6 be having the same discussion over and over again? And so that's where I think like there are a lot of red flags we mentioned, but there are a lot of ways to fix all of this too, which like hopefully people will get some juicy takeaways from us today. Um, and this is an important question I've been talking about a lot just on the podcast in my content. Like storytelling is such an important skill. I think every CEO has to be a great storyteller. I also think a lot of HR leaders have to be great storytellers. What role do you all think storytelling plays in helping new hires feel like they belong, not just like, yep, here's your offer. Welcome. Join us.
Yeah, probably the biggest role, and I equate storytelling and vulnerability like it's two things. Like my background's absolute chaos. I understand, but like it tells my story about who I am and what I care about, and that's one of those questions that I put on the new hires at Tech is what matters to you, what motivates you to do your best work, and then I give them some time to share. And like people are always hesitant to say money, and I'm like, it's 100% okay to say money. Like my family's my number one motivator, but money's a big part of that because I have two kids. They're 7 and 5. I want to be a huge influence to them. But I've had people from my family who've shaped my career. My dad passed away 4 weeks after I moved over to HR 10 years ago, and it was a terrible experience. And just going through this new job and everything. And then my cousin, a couple cousins I've had pass away from mental health struggles. And so I talk about that with every new hire class because it's really important to me. Like not everybody can be 100% every single day. And I cry all the time. So this is not out of the order by any means, but
Me
it's
too.
important to show up and say like, hey, it sucks for me sometimes. Yeah, I'm the director of organizational effectiveness at Tech. That's a very weighty title, but like I'm also a human being and you're a human being too. And it's okay to be a human being. So like come in, be yourself. If you're struggling, come talk to us. We're here to support you.
That was a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. I also teared up because I lost my dad like 1 month into a new job. Like imagine like onboarding and I had to go to my manager and be like, I'm week 3 in and I have to leave right now. My dad just passed away. And I remember like thinking in that moment, like, this is it, I'm going to lose my job. And they were actually like the most supportive organization I've ever worked for. And they took
Wow.
care of things and let me take a month off. Like, it was such an impactful moment in my life. So thank you for sharing, George.
Of course. Yeah. And I had a similar experience. Like I'd actually gotten married too. So started a new job, got married. My dad passed away. And my boss and like the leaders at Accruent is where I was working. A lot of those leaders are at Tech today. And that's a big reason why I'm here is because they've made such a lasting impact on how they treated me as a human and said, take all the time you need. Don't worry about any project you're working on. It made such a huge difference.
Yeah. Lots of people in the chat like giving you the love.
Yeah.
So I feel it.
Well,
Madison, are you
yeah.
are you doing well?
I'm weeping over here as well.
I'm like, not okay.
Um, no, I mean, yeah, I see so much about vulnerability, and Nicole called it out as well in the chat, but you know, this one really kind of hits home for me as well, and not through, like loss or tragedy, but more so out of passion as well. I mean, my background is I was a writing and linguistics major, and for the majority of my life, I really wanted to be like a contributing editor, like a staff writer for The Atlantic, and all of these fun things. And, I did that for a time and really kind of wanted to put on a new hat and then set myself out on a new challenge. But, I think regardless, we don't have to be a great orator of stories. We all have shared experiences, and I think often at times, like we get so caught up in our day to day and like how quickly and how fast paced things can be moving that we kind of forget that we're not just managing people, but we are people, and that we all have stories that we can connect with one another. I think storytelling really can remind us that, life doesn't happen at us, but it happens through us, and that we can connect with people by sharing a messy story, by sharing an honest story, by just truly humanizing and kind of grounding a situation to build trust and build some vulnerability. I think that that can remove the question of like a breakdown in communication. I think that it really allows us to recognize that people can see us, and if they're more likely to see us, they're more likely to stay with us.
Yeah, I was just thinking like that line that you said about storytelling, building connection. Like George, you share that story with every new hires. I'm sure they all feel so connected to you. And I think like the part of storytelling is we all just want to feel seen. And that
Yep.
like actually makes us feel like we belong. And so the idea of storytelling as a tool to do that, to either tell our own personal stories, to either tell the stories of our leaders, what inspired them to form the companies, why these companies even exist. I understand like if you're at a for-profit company that doesn't do something exciting, like I get it, we're all not all of us are curing cancer, okay? But there is something to be said about why a lot of our leaders started the companies they started. And I think grounding it in those stories, either of those leaders, what inspires them, what motivates them, builds that connection. And we're missing so much connection right now. Like they've done all the studies about like we're in a loneliness epidemic, like people don't feel connected to anybody. And I feel like if it's hard enough for us to be connected to one another, imagine how hard it is to make new hires feel connected to our companies. That's
Yeah.
like a whole separate thing.
Especially in a remote workforce too. I noticed somebody mentioned a comment about how onboarding can be so difficult in this like remote workforce that we're in, and in today's day and age. And
Yeah.
I think if we can combat that with consistent one-on-ones and sharing those micro wins, or encouraging some micro wins and encouraging outreach, that we're going to have a better experience. And like I have goosebumps right now just like looking and listening to all of the stories and reading them. Heba, your point too about like what data suggests. I mean, I was for all my SHRM folks here, I read a data point that about 70% of employees typically stay for 3 years or more if they've experienced great onboarding.
Wow.
And that's pretty pivotal.
Whoa. So our company's like 3.5 years old, and we have like, I think 2 to 3 employees who have been here the full 3 years. And my CEO and I talk about that too. Like, what kept the early employees? What do we want to do to like keep those people engaged and into the company? And they didn't even have an onboarding experience. Like, they didn't even know the company name when they started, but they're here. George, did you have something you wanted to add? I noticed you unmuted.
Yeah, I've seen some more red flags pop up in the chat, specifically around like bereavement and stuff like that. And it comes
Mhm.
back to like the onboarding and everything. Like it's always not, or it's never binary. There's always like rules and filters to apply in certain things. And like people's family is their family. It's not always their direct family that can hit them hard. Like when my cousin passed, that's technically not covered by bereavement, but my boss wasn't like, you can't go to the funeral. Like it's never that way. Like, again, we just to tie it all together, like we're human beings, treat people like human beings. That, you know, it's human resources for a reason. Remember that when you're talking about
Yeah.
it with your teams.
I did have a boss who didn't let me leave for the country to go to my grandfather's funeral, so I will never forget that person for the rest of my life,
Yeah.
but
For sure. Yeah. They
And for all
it,
the wrong reasons.
yeah.
I did not yeah, it did not work out for me there. Um, someone in the chat said drop his address. We are not doxing people, okay? That is not what we are doing. But I love you for asking that. I'm just kidding. We've touched on this a little bit. I want to segue and talk about like culture because I think it's just so important. Everyone's always like, I want to build great company cultures, but no one really knows how to do it. How can onboarding actually reinforce your culture instead of just repeating like your 5 values? I also have worked places where they're like, our culture is these 5 values. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Our culture is these 5 words that aren't even related to one another. Like, what does that mean? What do you all think about how onboarding can reinforce that?
Yeah, when I think about like using value slides, or I have that very specific image in my head too from previous experiences. And um I think that the biggest impact that we can make is we can't just talk about culture. You obviously have to like actually ritualize it and like really lean into it. And I'm a little bit biased because I've felt nothing but that here at Mitra Tech. I think that this is the first organization that I've ever worked for, and a lot of this is thanks to George as well. Just a little bit of a wink wink, but day one through day 90 of my kind of onboarding experience was really feeling the culture through outreach from peers and leaders, and really understanding that my CEO doesn't just talk about a slide, or my leadership team doesn't just like talk through slides. They actually like reach out one-on-one, set meetings, really make sure that people recognize where the organization started, how they're contributing to it, and then more importantly, how you as an employee can contribute to that overall mission as well.
Hell yeah, George. So that was amazing. No, I mean, like, George, you built it. Like, what were you thinking when you were like hearing Madison say that? I'm sure it was like really reaffirming you deserve all the flowers. But how did you think about that as you were shaping onboarding?
So I have a great partner named Priya. She's out of India, and she led new hire orientation when I joined the company. And so, knowing that was under my purview was one of those things like I immediately started to look at and think about. And I have a, to your point, like went around and asked like, hey, what are our values? Do you know our values? It was only 3 at the time, and a lot of people didn't. So like that was bad. We do have 5 now. We actually have 5. So we're reinforcing that stereotype there. But it's not just the values. It's how do values shape our behaviors? How do values shape the programs that we have? We're an insights discovery shop. We do a lot of coaching when it comes to leadership development. Enabling performance is something we say instead of performance management, because we're not trying to performance manage you out. Like, what does that mean at Meet Your Tech? And like, what are the do's and don'ts? Like when setting meetings, like we go over all that. Like during new hire orientation, I talk about that a lot. I cry a lot, obviously, but it's those things that reinforce, hey, we're going to do this, and we're actually going to prove it to you. We're not going to be another Enron with integrity on the wall when you come in. Like that's not the case. Integrity is not one of our values anyway, but it's important to like show them the why behind everything. Our leadership team talks about empathy, respect, and understanding a ton, and that defines our value of trust. Like, and we believe that and we practice that, so that definitely makes a difference.
I love that. And the Enron example is just so funny. Like, what an example. Like, let's put integrity on the wall and then do everything to not behave as such. It's interesting at work week, we have like 6 values. I can never remember all 6 of them. I always have to look them up. But that's because I have a lot of other things in my brain. But we also have operating principles. It was really important for my founders when they sat down, like they did this work. I did not. I inherited it. And I feel incredibly lucky that when they started the company, before they even wrote about what business they wanted to do, they wrote their values of like what they wanted work to be like, and then wrote operating principles for how you actually live those values, how it shows up in our day to day. And we do things like we teach everyone about them in onboarding. We share that doc openly whenever we hire anyone. And then we also do talk about them on a weekly basis through our wins. Like when people are celebrating their employees, they'll say like, they always have a bias to action, or they see the glass half full as one of ours. We have another one that's like empathy, not ego. And it's really interesting just hearing it become common vernacular within our employees too. And so in our onboarding, what we do is just try to share them and talk about like how we actually act on these values, not just how we have them. And I think like that has been really helpful. Like it's never let's repeat them. It's like employees feel deeply connected to them because they know that our values also are like core values for our two co-founders. So I feel incredibly lucky that I've gotten that, but I think a lot of times like values can be really empty words unless people understand how to actually act on them. George, we're also going to try to clone you, apparently.
I see
Um,
that. I
okay,
see
we have to
that.
get to more questions. We have to take live questions too. Okay, I think this is our last question. What are some signs your onboarding process is built for HR, not humans?
Oh, lots of paperwork. You get there and you have like 40 invitations on your calendar to meetings you have no idea what they are. And it's like it's a very check the box sort of thing. Like it might even actually be like a checklist that you go
Yeah,
through.
yeah,
It's like, did you do your sexual harassment training? Did you do your security training? Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? Like that's built for HR. Like not even asking like, hey, it's day one. How are you feeling? Are you
Mm.
nervous? If you're nervous, let's talk about it. Let's work through those nerves together, sort of thing.
yeah. I love that. Whenever it's like do your training is an item, I'm like, ugh. I know we have to do the training. Okay, I'm gonna not have to hate on the training. I know we have to legally do them, but when I see that and my first action item is read this handbook, I'm like,
Yep.
oh God, I'm not going to read 60 pages of legal jargon that I don't even understand or could begin to understand. Like, that's tough. Madison, what do you think?
I just imagine a flood of, yes, links and logins. Also, how disruptive, like disconnected solutions can be too. If we have like four different systems to log into to access five different trainings and like the numbers don't add up and we can't get into SSO and all of these things, that creates a nightmare for everyone at the start. Um, and I think I hear it on a day-to-day basis too of, okay, yeah, if it's compliance related, yeah, we get it. We have to complete the training. Yes, to your point, Heba, but also like, are we checking in with our people? Are we asking them if they're okay? What can we help with? What's not working? Making sure that that's kind of the kickoff of the day and not just here, do your training.
Yeah. Somebody asked when you do structure your compliance items in, I like to sprinkle them throughout the first week and just actually like for every serious compliance training we have, we usually have a employee facing document that explains in like uh, basic English, like everyday speak, why you're doing this thing that we're asking them to do. Like our
Mm.
handbook was 47 pages long. And then we wrote a 5-page document that was like, hey, if you're really trying to understand the legal language in the handbook, here are literal policies that are impacted by this handbook, but we have to have legal language in the handbook, regular language for everyone else. So that's kind of what we've done. Um, but I definitely think like signing up and making their first day all compliance trainings is a huge miss. At
Yeah,
most, like maybe one compliance thing on day one, I-9. You have to do that within the first 3 days. So you could even do that on day two. But I usually just say make that your one real compliancy thing on day one and then sprinkle the rest throughout the week.
yeah. Give them time to do it. And Madison talked about lists and things like that.
Yeah.
She knows I'm guilty of a list. Like she's been through my new hire and
I love a
experience.
list.
Like but you got to walk them through the list and like show
Yeah.
them, hey, here's why this SharePoint page is important. Here's why this is like you said, Hibba, show them the why to make it make sense, and that makes it a huge difference.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. I think maybe we have one more. No, we're ready for live. Y'all ready for this? Dun, dun,
We're
dun,
ready.
dun, 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 dun. Okay, I have to stop singing on these. You can drop your questions in there. So far, I think we have, let's see, we have 10, and I'm going to go by most upvotes to make sure we get them, the most voted ones up first. Here is the first one, and it has 5 upvotes. How to convince managers they need to participate in the onboarding planning. Sometimes just being told what to do by HR. Currently working at an org that lets each department deal with their own onboarding, and it's very inconsistent. What do we
Hmm.
think?
I mean, we let our own departments do their own onboarding, but we provide them with a foundation of here's what good looks like, and we do have a really good NHO program, top cream of the crop, I would say. But you got to walk them through, like especially if a leader's like, "Hey, I don't have an onboarding plan. How, can I get some help?" Instead of just throwing them an Excel spreadsheet, walk them through the Excel spreadsheet again to like explain the why behind everything. And like,
Yeah.
it's the people, processes, and programs that are important. Like if you can answer those questions, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I think you have to give I'm guilty of a template. I'm a template queen. I'm like, everyone needs a
Fine.
template for something. I think
Yeah.
if you gave them a template and said, here is the 3 goals of onboarding, all you need to do as a manager is fill these out to make sure they get a supreme experience. It's easier to get people's buy-in when they think they have to do less work, unfortunately. We sit down right now one-on-one with our managers, like very, very intentionally to sit down and say, like, what are you trying to get out of onboarding? Who do they need to meet? What's important? What business things do they need to understand? As it scales, like it won't work like that anymore, but I'm going to templatize it all so that managers can do a lot of self-service. And then I
Mm.
can just come in and add like the icing on the cake at the end.
Yeah, I think it's a missed opportunity it when we don't feel like we're properly training our managers either. Like, yes, we all need checklists, and I love that, and I actually love the ability to say, "Okay, I have actually crossed this out. I feel good about that." But when we hand over those checklists or like templates to managers and we're like, "Hey, go, run, Godspeed, good luck." It's a missed opportunity when we don't actually have those one-on-ones with our managers either to say, okay, do we feel comfortable? Do we know what's included in here? How can we make the best impact?
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of questions for my template, but I will be sure to drop it in our after event email, rest assured. Okay, next question. Remember, you can upvote these. How do you help the org transition from a small startup mentality to a large, oh, it just moved, sorry. How do we, this thing keeps moving. I'm like, I'm gonna have a seizure. How do you help the org transition from a small startup mentality to a large or effectiveness with onboarding? Currently doing a lot of one-off hires and onboarding meetings rather than group. Hmm.
Hibba, this might be one for you.
I mean, we are still small, but how we think about the group experience is like the more that we can do together and give people onboarding buddies, people they see and recognize with them, the better. We actually tried to group our start dates. Like, I don't like having someone start every single Monday of the month. We try to like do hiring classes so people are together with their buddies. And then it is very standard. Like, maybe they all have the same 10 first meetings, but then they all go off and meetings 10 through 20 are actually custom to their role. And so I think when you're thinking about how to scale, definitely think about what can we all do together and what do they need to do one off. George, what's like the hiring class sizes for you?
The last two have been like 70 to 80. So we've been doing a lot of, yeah, it's insane. Um, have like a central repository for, hey, welcome to the company. Here's an overview of the teams. Here's an overview of the executive leadership team. Here is the values. Here are the programs that tie into those values. We have all this on our SharePoint page where they can click on everything. They can learn what our managers are learning about in our coach program. They can learn more about insights discovery, see the little Lego blocks all around, like that sort of thing makes a difference.
Love that. And then I just refreshed again because a lot of you voted. So we have a top question. This is fun. Democracy. Um, Best practices for developing a solid onboarding, not just HR orientation in an intro, but a fully developed onboarding with managers and others in the company to support employees. So maybe some best practice tips. Hmm.
I
That's
would
a
always say
lot of
start
questions.
with the why. And I think, George, you could attest to this as well. But like, what are we doing before we schedule like the Zooms or like the purpose of an onboarding experience? But like, what does a new hire need to feel? How are we actually providing that information? Are we going to do a 30, 60, 90-day, review and maybe even change the verbiage? It doesn't have to be a review, but more of a conversation.
Hmm.
What are like the markers of a successful ramp up, like actually having that conversation?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't pay Simon Sinek a royalty fee for all this, Brene, but I definitely do reference Simon quite a bit, and Adam Grant, and Aaron Meyer, who wrote the culture map. Like we have our
Yeah.
go-tos. Patrick Lencioni, like a lot of organizations talk about death by meeting, talk about the advantage, things like that. Like that helps inform our how we operate. And like if you provide them book summaries of those books, that makes a huge difference. Not a 200-page book. So go find your cheat sheet for book summaries. Um, yeah, that can help for sure.
Yeah. I think one of my other best practices I have to sprinkle in here, and this is kudos to Morgan T. Stanley. She worked with me at Axios and ran our onboarding program and did a phenomenal job at doing it. She made sure that there was a section of onboarding that was like history of the company and like access to the founder story. And I think that is one of the best practices in onboarding to me. It's like, yes, in the interview process, we make sure every single candidate understands what the F we're doing here, right? Like, you don't want someone to start and be like, how do we make money again? So, like, we cover that throughout our interview process, like multiple steps. The second piece of that is like, why? Like back to what Madison said, why? Like the founder story of like company history, I think has to be included because people need to understand how you got to where they currently are in the story. And a lot of historical context, I think, gets left out when a new hire starts, but it's so impactful for them to understand why you do things the way you do them in the present timeline. So I think like that to me is an absolute best practice, incorporating the company history and story. Like, what are you even doing there?
I
Um,
started laughing when you said how we make money because that's the title of our CFO's presentation in new
love.
hire orientation. Like he comes in and explains an ARR snowball and stuff like that so people can
Yeah.
understand it a bit more.
And that hits me like you just said something that makes best practice number two. I will give this one too. Have each department leader show up and do a presentation on what is their department. Like, I cannot tell you how many times a week my CEO and I have this discussion. Like, we should have somewhere that writes down what every single person is like overseeing or doing because people will be like, well, who oversees that? Well, who does that? Well, how does that person do it? Orientation is an excellent time to be like, here's our finance function, here's our business development function, here's our sales function, here's our marketing function, and have each person talk about who they are, what they do, and why they do it, and how it moves the business forward. Like, very simple structure. Each department, like, if you are a department leader and you can't talk about that, I think you should figure out something else for that department leader to be doing. Like,
Sure.
you
And
have
if you
to.
want to take it to the next level, you should do what we do and have the ELT get together for a roundtable, non-recorded, and people can ask them any question.
Yep. We also do that. We do that under a guise of lunch. We're like lunch with our founders.
It's
And then
fun.
we're like, ask them questions. Sometimes nobody asks them anything, but other times people ask them like really interesting questions. And they usually take the questions, feed them back to us. And if a question comes up enough, we'll make a session on it. We'll say, oh, maybe we incorporate a session on this. Okay, next question. I'm trying to get to as many of these as possible. I feel like we nail orientation, the first impression, and the welcome. But onboarding, getting folks support as they learn very different positions within their team is hard. How can HR provide consistency and experience across large orgs with very diverse positions?
I mean, like Hiba talked about, use the template and like make it a time bound template too. Like, have your separate tabs with 30, 60, 90, but make some stuff do week 1, 2, 3, 4, like go on and on and on, like as much as you can map out. Our sales enablement team is great. Shout out to Sandra for helping out the sales org. Like it makes a huge difference. The more you can map out, the more you can make things predictable, like and provide an example of here's how sales enablement does it, and then have a conversation with them about here's how you could adopt it for customer success, support, services, whatever it is. Like you sit down and put in the energy and effort, and it'll make a huge difference long term.
Yeah. We started with like the org that we knew we were going to hire the most in. And we were like, let's really nail that onboarding. And then we basically took that and then applied it to every single org after that, every single department after that. And it like worked out really great. I mean, like, I think, George, what you said, 100, have nothing to add there other than consider just like templatizing everything. I keep saying like a template is any, you could go to ChatGPT right now and ask, build me an onboarding template, and it will give you something. And then you go in and you layer on what makes your organization special. Like we come in as the artists and put the final touches on it. But I think ChatGPT can give you a really good template. I can also share my templates too. Like I've been revisiting onboarding. This is like one of my passion points. It's like a passion project for me. I'm like, let's fix onboarding every other week. Okay, we have time for maybe two more questions. Keep voting because I'm refreshing them by most voted. This feels like American Idol. I don't know why. What can we do to get employees to more candidly give their feedback re-onboarding, especially when they say that everything is great when we reach out for our 30-day survey and then quit shortly after?
Mm.
Ooh. Okay,
I
so
would, oh, sorry, how about
no,
you
no,
go?
no, 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 you go.
Maybe try to differentiate from asking generic questions. Maybe just not like, is everything going well? Like, if we know painful experiences, like we've talked about, or vulnerabilities, maybe we sometimes make positive assumptions in the way of like, what has typically surprised you in the first 30 days, or ask more emotional or empathy based questions on how people feel most supported or what's really difficult for them in a new situation. Like really learning those languages of, you could say even like love languages to an extent, or, those listening languages of how people take feedback, and really just kind of try to separate yourself from asking
Yeah,
standard, generic based questions.
I love that. Especially if you know there's a specific problem in that department. I'm not above sprinkling in a very specific question on an onboarding survey. I'll be sneaky. George, what do you think?
Yeah, Madison is aware I have a course called The Art of Feedback that I assign to every new hire at Tech. So, like, show them what good feedback looks like, show them how to ask questions for feedback, but then also practice what you preach. Like, we send an anonymous feedback survey out every 3 months. It's truly anonymous. You can't filter out by, based upon certain thresholds. But direct them. What went bad in your onboarding experience? What went well? Don't just
Mm,
give them an out of, hey, did you have a good onboarding experience? They're going to say yes. Like that's just the brain
it's
trick
easy.
101. So you got to direct them and then ask them for the actionable examples of how we can get better.
Yeah. It's so interesting. So we do 30, ooh, someone wants your course. We do 30, 60, 90 day to the employee. We also have the manager answer the questions. So we have a specific set of manager questions as well. And then we look to see, is there a gap? And that's
Mm,
like, that takes a little bit of analysis for us, but that's how I truly get to the root of like what is going on here. Because somewhere in the middle between two stories lies the actual truth. So I take like the employee feedback and the manager feedback and I try to find where the middle ground is. The other thing is like ours are not anonymous, but we tell the employee the only two people who have access to the survey are the two HR people. And I
mm,
always try to tell them, hey, the reason I have access to the survey is because if I need to do something custom or I need to intervene, the only way I can do it is if I know who's taking the survey. If that
mhm,
makes you uncomfortable, I'm so sorry. Like we're very transparent at our org. So we tell people like you have nothing to lose from being honest. If anything, it's just going to make me intervene very quickly rather than waiting for something to become a problem. And so I've done that trust building with our employees, but I understand that that might not work everywhere. Like it might be better to make them fully anonymous. Okay, I think we have time for one more question, and I have to ask this one because I want to know the answer to this. How do you measure the effectiveness of onboarding?
mm.
Do you measure your onboarding, George?
Oh, we do for sure. I mean, it's in the engagement survey for sure for the departmental onboarding, but then also for like new hire orientation, which is a big part of our onboarding. It's 4 days, it's 15 hours of material. We ask for feedback on every single presentation, and what did you like? What didn't you like?
Yeah.
Again, anonymous, so people can tell me they thought I sucked. If I did suck, hasn't happened yet.
Doubt
Knock
it.
on wood. But things like just again be direct and ask when you're building a new onboarding plan, go talk to the most recent onboarding person that you brought
Mhm.
on and say, hey, remember when you onboarded 6 months ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was? What would you change if you could change anything in that? That's the
Mm,
best way to get feedback is talk to the people who've gone through it and get the direct feedback from them.
yeah, that's an amazing way to build trust too. I go to them and I say, hey, like I know you had an onboarding experience. I'm really trying to like make sure we build it better and like we incorporate all your feedback. What do you think we should do differently? And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden, managers and employees feel like they're actually in like influencing culture and onboarding, and they get like excited to share their thoughts. People just
I
want to be heard.
Yeah, I think if we're maybe making suggestions on how we can do better too, so, leaving it open-ended, but, if I get feedback from a recently onboarded employee that, hey, I felt like this was rushed or I didn't really get clarity here or X, Y, and Z, taking that feedback and saying, okay, if your onboarding felt rushed, if I added 30-day check-in or additional check-ins to the roadmap or setting additional expectations. You could be as specific as you want, but would that maybe close the loop? Would that maybe have settled any kind of questions or made you feel a little bit more comfortable? I think that giving a few examples also allows room for employees to say yes, no, maybe so, or provide additional feedback.
Yeah.
And please share with your employees how you use the feedback. If it just goes into a black hole and you never do anything about it, they're going to stop giving you feedback. We frequently talk about, hey, here's the feedback. We've read it. We've heard it. Here's what we're doing differently. You got to
Mhm.
do that feedback
Mhm.
conversation.
Yeah. And I mean, clearly you all are doing something really great at Tech, which like brings me to my point. If you're looking to take a demo of their tool, like please do. Like clearly George knows what's going on. So definitely thankful that I got to partner with them on this event, but also check out their tool. I'm just saying. Oh, and we have people saying they love you all. Okay, hold on. We have reached the end of our time together. We literally have 2 minutes left. I'm going to skip the slide because we'll just get to it. I'm hosting a summit in October in Chicago. If you want to come, scan the QR code and you can come on through and come on by. Um, and then just a big thanks to Tech. If you want to take a demo, please let us know. You can definitely, I think we have a poll that's going to pop up. It's either going to say yes or no, or JC's going to drop. Oh, there it goes. Would you like it? I love a little poll. Would you like a poll? Would you like a demo? Like you've heard what George has had to say. He works there. He knows what's up. I'm not allowed to vote on the poll, so I hope all of you do. But I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who spent their time with us today, who shared their horror stories, who walked away with stuff. We have a ton of good follow up for you all. If you want to join us in Chicago at the Safe Space Summit, please do before spots run out. If you want a demo of Tech, please get one. And then we have to do a resounding, huge thank you to George and Madison for dropping so much knowledge, being incredible panelists, being wonderful people to get to know. Everyone's going to stalk both of you on LinkedIn. So be prepared for the stalking to happen. And just a big thank you to everyone who participated, who was active, and who took time out of their day to do this. I love it. We're going to have a George and Madison fan club.
Let's
Just
do
gonna get your,
it.
just
Here
get both
for
of
it.
our. We're gonna need George to do a like a headshot of him looking to the side, and then we'll all just be the three of our profiles on a t-shirt.
I think this has to happen.
Not me about to open customink.com to make this t-shirt. We're having
Oh,
such a good time. Thank you to everyone who's joining us. Again, Madison and George, this is always a pleasure. I love getting to know you all, and you're building something really great at Tech. So great job.
Thank you all.
thank you all so much.
Bye, all. See you soon.